Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to A Living Brand, where I am your host, Felicia Shakespeare. It is so exciting to be here. This is premiere month. As you all know who joined me last week, we launched A Living Brand. For those who were with me before on the You Are Your Brand morning show, we have just matriculated over now to the evening time. So thank you so much for being here. I am so excited once again to share with you A Living Brand. Once again, if you are tuning in, I am actually in Chicago. My name is Felicia Shakespeare. And the Living Brand, once again, was just launched last week officially. And what do we do at A Living Brand, you may ask? We provide resources for intensive self-exploration, enabling leaders to build and manage a superior brand. What do? We are breathing life into your brand. So what do you all realize? We are all living brands, right? I love even the concept of just living testaments, or and some may say testimonies, right, to what is possible based on our purpose and based on us knowing our why. So what am I here to do? I am here to help you develop and take your brand to the next level. So there are so many programs that have been launched, and we're going to be launching in the coming weeks. So the first thing I want you all to first do, if nothing else tonight, please go everywhere and follow A Living Brand. Follow the handle A Living Brand on all social media platforms. Please follow us also on our website. And we are just once again so excited to be here tonight. So what an awesome night that is prepared for you. I'm so excited about my guest tonight. And she is a living brand, I would say. I want to bring her on. If we could bring her on now, her name is Adrienne Alexander-Allen. And Hey, Adrienne, how are you tonight?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. But those who don't know, Adrienne, we've been trying to get together for months. I mean, months. I've been like, it's like I call her, Adrienne, can you do it this week? Where we go? Okay, when you get back, let's reconnect. So it's just been amazing. So Adrienne is a PR specialist. And tonight, we're going to actually talk about her journey, and she's going to actually help us understand what PR is. I want to just give a little bit of background. I met Adrienne through a colleague here in Chicago. Andrea actually introduced me to you, right?
Yes.
I was hosting my conference. For those who don't know, I actually had a conference called A Purpose-Driven Woman, and that conference was scheduled in Atlanta in 2020. But ironically, what happened, Adrienne? It was scheduled 3/20/20. And what happened on 3/17? The whole world shut down.
It was so funny, like just being right in the thick of it, because, you had to make a decision, right? This wasn't something that was planned weeks out, that, you had a chance to really say, oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, or, like really move it around in some kind of way. But you were like, right in the thick of, should I still do it in person? Should I do it virtual? Can I do it in person? Because, again, this was right at the beginning. And so we really had no idea of where we would be now, right?
No idea. And it was so amazing how I met you, and you just jumped right in. It was no hesitation. So literally everyone on the Atlanta program pivoted to an online format. We just literally, I didn't even know how to work Zoom at the time.
Right.
Zoom was like for some and not others. I was using Uber Conference.
Right.
But long story short, you were part of the lineup, and it was actually our event was being positioned for multiple things. And your topic was the power of PR, being positioned for PR. So why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about who you are?
Yes, I am Adrienne Alexander-Allen. I am originally from Baltimore, now living here in Georgia. I've been working in the PR space for almost 20 years now, which is crazy. But most of my clients live in the entrepreneurial wellness space, but then there's also a lot of entertainment and celebrity-driven opportunities that I focus on as well. I do have 3 children, a grandchild, so we making it happen over here in these COVID streets. I do. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yes.
And just so you are based in Atlanta now. correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you're doing a lot of great things. We don't want to skate over that. What are some? I know you're on the board, the Black PR board. That's one of the things you're doing. I know you are a newly published author. That was like one of our main reasons for getting together. And we're going to also talk about just the whole aspect of what PR is. So why don't you just, and I know that was a huge part of the conference when we talked about what is PR. I think a lot of times people get confused. And I know you had such a passion to clarify the difference between what PR is, what marketing is, what sales. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that and why that's such a passion for you?
Yeah, so starting with what you first mentioned, I am the communication chair for the Black Public Relations Society of Atlanta. And what we are, thank you, we want to bring attention to and streamline the process for younger publicists that are starting out, Black publicists, just to make sure that they get opportunities, exposure to opportunities that they may not have access to right now. So we want to create more programming for younger publicists, more opportunities, more discounted programming, things of that nature, just to really pour into them a lot of the things that we may not have had coming up when we started out in this PR space. And, the difference between PR, marketing, advertising, branding, I'm so passionate about it because people, I don't know whether they misunderstand it purposefully, whether they, just because they all work in tandem, right? All of them work together so closely that it's hard to separate them out. And so I feel like sometimes there are some people who actually know the difference, but because they know how they work together, they choose not to separate them. So one of the easiest and painless ways of separating them is PR works and earned media, which is free. Anything that's free is PR. So television interview, this interview, your platform, newspaper, radio, anything that is a free publication is PR. We do not book gigs. We do not book your billboards. We do not do any of your sales for you or anything like that. Anything that has a tangible component to it or a monetary component to it will fall outside of PR. So whether that be marketing, advertising, social media management, any of those things, anything that has a monetary component to it is not PR.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, even though they're closely tied as far as giving you publicity, PR, publicity, public relations, but ultimately, if it doesn't have a price on it, that's considered the PR piece. Is that what
correct? Okay. Yeah, and so also with PR, we work on a monthly retainer because our retainer is time-based. We're pitching you constantly. We're researching opportunities for you. We're connecting you with those free opportunities. So that's why we work on a monthly retainer. When you're dealing in marketing, okay, my marketing budget is XYZ, and whatever I can pay for in that budget, inclusive of flyers,
right,
advertorials, billboards, anything that I say, my marketing budget is this, a commercial, anything like that falls in your marketing budget are those things that you budget out and allocate to those paid opportunities.
Okay, wonderful. So what is the good time? Because I think some people struggle with understanding when they should get a PR agent or a public relations agent. What would you say is the ideal time? Because I know most of the time when you see, especially when I think of PR, to be honest with you, I've always thought of maybe a high-end celebrity, like when you know someone has a book release coming out or someone in Hollywood with a new movie coming out and you see them do the whole
press tour.
show to show. They're on Good Morning America, then they're on Kelly and Ryan, and then they're on The View. And they're all in New York doing it back to back. But at what point would you say someone would have the need in their professional life to actually utilize a PR agent as yourself? When would they want to hire your agency?
When you have exhausted all of your own opportunities. So like you've done your due diligence, right? Like you have reached out to your local communities. You reached out to any of your morning news or anybody else, your connections, your network. You've done all these things. Or you have gotten to a point where the story is bigger than you, right? So it's like, I started out doing this and I've been doing it enough by myself, and I've gotten to the point now where I can no longer handle it myself because it's bigger than me. You always want to make sure that you have a story that is newsworthy.
Okay.
So even if you have a book that came out, or if you're launching a new product or service, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's newsworthy alone. So, if you say I've launched a 20-page book on how to open a door, something like that, just something basic. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need a PR plan or that you need to invest in a publicist. It means that you need to work to promote it and do your own due diligence and your own work at promoting it. And then once the story gets big enough, then you say, okay, I need help with this.
I like that because a lot of times people don't want to put in that legwork. And a lot of times it takes work. It takes work to get anything off the ground. It takes work. And it was so funny to me one time somebody inboxed me, who is your PR agent? I'm like, I don't have a PR agent. I have my PR agent. Right. You really can do a lot on your own if you just follow the basic steps. Like you said, putting together a press release when something is happening, But once again, we want to still talk about why it's so important to have someone in your space. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your agency and the services that you offer and why?
So that's a great question because people neglect the importance of a team, right? Like you have to have a team. When you are building and running a business, you need to have a team. So it's important to have someone in your space so that you aren't doing it alone and you aren't feeling overwhelmed. You aren't feeling like I can't do this anymore because you're able to delegate. And a lot of the reason why entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners don't really flourish is because they want to keep everything. It's like, I can't let go because, if I tell somebody what I'm working on, then they're going to steal it. Or if I let somebody try to do it, they're not going to do it the way that I would do it. And so because we don't want to share and delegate, that's why a lot of us tend to fall behind and lack. And so what my company does, we do offer writing, press release writing services. We offer copywriting. We offer pitching. We run the full gamut of public relations services. So on a monthly basis, you are constantly pitched to those who write and follow your genre. So whatever demographic you fall into, those are the writers and journalists that we're reaching out to. Mm-hmm. Also researching opportunities. So looking for even like your show, like if I have a client that fits, then I'll reach out and say, hey, Felicia, I have so-and-so that's doing X, Y, and Z. I think they would be a great fit for your show. Pitching these opportunities and finding those niche publications and outlets that can really work with them to help them build their brand.
That's amazing. And I'm just looking at kind of some of the things, particularly your public relations firm is adept in advice and guidance, particularly with marketing strategies, creative concepts, advertising, and event planning. And I think another thing that also goes underrepresented sometimes is your ability to even address situations for conflict, resolution. Sometimes, why don't you talk about that? What that means for the audience? What is conflict management?
So, Felicia, I do a lot, y'all. I do a lot. So I am also certified in conflict resolution and conflict management. And I thought that was important because a lot of the issues and situations that we find ourselves in are a direct result of not understanding how to deal with conflict and not understanding how to communicate effectively. Okay. We all feel like we're doing it right. If I feel like I'm speaking to you the right way, I'm saying the right things, I'm doing the right things. And then as soon as someone challenges what you say, now you're tight, like I know what I'm saying. I know, and a lot of that can easily be fixed if you really take a breath first. I always tell everybody, a lot of the times, when you say something, you can't take it back, right? You can apologize for it. Right. You can be like, I regret saying that, but you can't take it back. And so, one key thing to do when you find yourself in these situations face to face or on phone or a platform like this, is to breathe before you say anything, right? It's like, because you could be cursing me out and in the moment, I probably want to curse you back, but then I need to be like, okay, wait a minute. if I curse you, what is that going to mean for me? Like, what does this mean? Because they may not pay more attention to you than they pay to me, or, I might not get the same amount that you get. So I need to understand and recognize what's best for me in this situation and scenario before I make my heart happy just saying that I cursed you back. So a lot of times, it's really about having the tools that you need and really listening and hearing and thinking about what it is when you speak or before you speak. And you'll notice a lot of people, there are some little context clues. And, when you're doing these interviews, a lot of ways for your audience, a lot of ways to give yourself a moment is to, and that was a good question, Felicia. And you give yourself a minute to, kind of breathe and bring it down a minute, or say, oh, okay, that's a good one. Let me think about it. Or, oh, yeah, no one's asked me that before. You know what I mean? Something subtle that doesn't take away from the conversation, but allows you a moment to breathe before you answer.
And I'm so glad you brought up the point. I was just really thinking back to what you talked about in the very beginning about the fact that the PR, once you've done all you can do, and a lot of what you do, because I think there is confusion. I think sometimes they think the PR is actually going to get you those paid gigs or those paid speaking opportunities. Who are those people? Is that just a manager, or what is the breakdown of a real, I would say, sturdy team? Like, what should everyone have when they're growing their business or when they're growing their brand? What would you say? Of course, PRs is of course at the top of the list. What else would you say? Who are those key individuals and what are their roles?
Well, it depends on who the person is, right? Because not everybody needs a manager. Not everybody needs an agent. Not everybody needs a publicist either. You know what I mean? So it kind of depends. But some of the people that you definitely want to have, if you're a speaker, when we talk about those engagements, or actor, someone who is looking to get paid, then you want to have a booking agent or a manager, but more so a booking agent will work in tandem with your manager, because your manager is the one that's really, really working to get you money, right? Your manager is putting you out there, creating opportunities for you, and they're spending their money sometimes to do that. A booking agent is the person that has these contacts for these larger opportunities that need speakers, or, maybe you're connected to a speakers bureau where, you are already signed up, and the larger summits and conferences come to them looking for speakers. So, it's always good to make sure that your team aligns with your brand and your mission. Right. But then also, I know the standard ones, they always say, have your attorney, have your the people that keep the money safe. You know what I mean? So regardless of what you're doing, those two are important. But yeah, the other people on your team should definitely align with what your brand and your services are.
So I'm thinking, so how would you work in tandem with those people as a PR agent? Show me how you would work in tandem with those two.
So I'm usually the point of contact. Okay. So, because managers, agents, attorneys, a lot of them don't really want or need their information out there. Okay. Because if you have easily access to the managers, they can get overwhelmed with opportunities that don't even align with what their client is looking for. So your publicist is usually a point of contact. Whenever you are looking for someone in the industry, whenever you're looking for someone to get in contact with them, usually the publicist is the point of contact, because that person is the person who is earmarked to speak for you, share your story, communicate on your behalf. And so we're usually that first point of contact.
Okay, so that's critical to know, because a lot of people, they just want to skate over the dynamics of, for lack of a better term, protocol, like who's who, or they just don't understand what the dynamics are. So right. The PR is the point of contact, which means also that these, depending on your industry, like you said, you can have a booking agent, you can have a lawyer, whatever the case may be, but you are ultimately in tandem with the individual. And you are representing them, and you're always that positive voice, and you're always looking for opportunities to get them more exposure in the media. Right. Would I say that? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm on. All right. Well, this is amazing. So what would you say, Adrienne? I know you did some pivoting. I kind of saw you do some things a little differently. since COVID, what would you say, even with now us being in this state of the world, COVID-19, of course, we are still, I know people don't want to act like it, but we are actually still in a worldwide pandemic.
Right.
You know, we don't have the clearance to go back to the way things originally were. So what have been the tools or strategies or things you've had to do to keep your business going at this time, your PR business in particular? What's going on out there in the PR world right now in the pandemic?
Well, a lot of it was mainly just shifting, even like with your conference, shifting from in-person to virtual. Okay. And a lot of those opportunities were able to go virtual. Luckily, you just had to find creative ways to keep people engaged, right? You know, make sure that your guests are engaging, make sure that my client that I'm pitching is somebody that people want to sit and listen to, because we were looking at our computers 12 hours a day, sometimes, depending on what you were doing, right? And so you don't want to just sit and listen to people, have people talking at you, and you know, like there's no engagement, is not personable. And so the shift was really just making sure that those opportunities aligned to make sure that our clients fell into a space where they were still being productive. Okay. And, you know, just like with yours, for like that first maybe 2 or 3 months, right? I think that it was a lot of downtime because people just really didn't know. You know, like we've never been faced with anything like this before. So when it happened, we were just like, do I go virtual? I don't even, to your point, I don't even know how to go virtual. Like, what does virtual look like? You know? And so that was a lot of what needed to happen, is just really understanding and aligning that virtual world, right? And throughout this pandemic, a lot more virtual platforms popped up, like StreamYard, you know, like people started using different platforms to be able to give better engagement and just give people, because now you're paying people to attend your program while they still sitting in their living room, right? So it's like, where's the benefit in that? Like it has to feel like you're getting something if I'm asking you to pay me, but you're not leaving home. Right. And so a lot of, it was more writing also for me. I do have a couple of gigs on the Fiverr platform. So, which really exploded during the pandemic. And I know for you entrepreneurs who are familiar with Fiverr, a lot of people really are like, Fiverr is horrible. Like Fiverr, you know, but Fiverr is for me, even when I joined it, when they gave me a pro platform, I was only familiar with Fiverr for flyers or logos, you know, things of that nature. And so I found this whole new world of people who need things written. Absolutely. So it's been great for me.
And Fiverr, like you said, and just to have someone of your quality on there, it just speaks to the quality. You do have to do your research. Once again, you have to literally read through processes like you would do anything else. But you can, like you said, you can get voiceovers, you can get commercials, you can get video editing. I mean, you can literally pay for anything. Everything is not $5 though. Right. It's going to be $5. Right. You have those individuals, and of course the reviews. So those are all amazing opportunities. Once again, if you need to outsource your work. So once again, you are watching A Living Brand, and A Living Brand show, and my guest tonight is Adrienne Alexander. I like to do the AAA. Allen. The owner of I Promote You agency out of Atlanta, Georgia, and we are talking about the power of PR. Why do you need PR? What is PR? What is the benefit of PR? And who's on the radar? I mean, why would you want a PR agent at this point in time? And when will you actually need one? So let's go ahead and do a little shift. I want to talk about, because let me ask you this: did the idea for the book come before, during, or during the pandemic? The book that you wrote, the release.
So actually, this is my third book. I know you mentioned that I was newly published. Yeah, so this was my third book. Okay. And it's funny because I have these books, right? But I still have not truly claimed the author title completely. You know, it's like I write them and I put them out, and then, you know, I just let them do what they're going to do. But this book that you're referring to actually was a poem. that I wrote probably when I was in my 20s, if not earlier than my 20s. But I wrote it as a poem a really, really long time ago and just let it sit. And it was during the pandemic that I think I was going through something on my external hard drive, and I came across a lot of the things that I've just written, because I have so many projects, books, poems, writings that are just there. And for some reason, this one stuck out to me. And I said, let me turn it into a book. I may as well turn it into a book. I was like, it's very important subject matter. And I feel like it can help a lot of people. And so, to the point of what I said earlier in our interview, I got in my way a lot, because for me, initially, I felt like I could not take away from the poem and still have it do what it was going to do. So I was trying to turn it into a book. I think the book initially had probably like 15 pages or something like that, because I tried to, keep it in poem form. And then I was running into a lot of issues, because the printer, it has to be a certain amount of pages. It has to be a certain amount of thickness. I wanted it hardcover, because for me, traditional children's books are hardcover, small books. And that's just the way I pictured it in my head. So after a few months of trying to do it myself, I had to break down and get a publisher, because I was like, Adrienne, you are never going to get this done if you keep doing it like this. And so, so that's how
Yeah, go ahead. So
I didn't know if you wanted me to get into it yet, or if you were going to ask stuff.
You know what? I was looking here and I see, because you had a book come out. It looks like in 2020, then one in 2021. Is that correct? Kind of back to back.
I think the first one was.
I'm looking at the date. Public Relations Ain't Free. Let's talk about that book. Let's start with that one, and then I want to dive into the topic of the children's book and why you wrote that. So, what made you want to write this book, Public Relations Ain't Free, and Other Tales Regarding Public Relations? What is that all about?
Because everybody feel like they want to barter for PR. It's like, to my point, because PR is not tangible like marketing, people don't see the value in it. A lot of them want to do pay-per placement, or they want to say, I can pay you an exposure or something like that. But again, that's just not how it works, because we spend so much time sending all the emails that you don't want to send, placing all the phone calls that you don't want to make, looking for opportunities for you, writing, pitching, researching. All of these things take time. And the same way you want to be paid for your time, we need to be paid for ours also. Absolutely. And so, because people barter so much, and that was always the conversation, public relations is not free. Public relations is not free. And so, and then I put in the other tall tales, because again, like in our age range, we're coming up, we're familiar with tall tales. We know what tall tales are. And so there are so many things that people believe about PR that I just wanted to dispel. And I actually, just so funny, I have it here.
I'm so happy you do. Please show us. All right. So, beautiful cover.
Thank you so much.
Love it.
And I pulled it up because I wanted to show you. This book is not thick at all. Like, I just wanted this to be something short and sweet to tell you everything that is not true about PR. Like, that's all that it was. It was just a really quick read, short guide to tell you what PR is, what it isn't, what we do, what we don't do, and how to manage expectations when it comes to hiring a publicist.
That's a perfect book, Adrienne. I promise you. You wrote a book if people want to be able to feel like they can get to the end of it. So that's more encouraging than anything for a reader, because we're in such a fast-paced world right now, and our attention span. So I think that's the perfect number. So you're good to go. Don't worry about it. You're good.
Thank you.
And then the other book, which is the new release, the children's book, I just really thought I found it fascinating. And the name of that book, let me pull it up, is called My Parents Have a Drug Problem. And I just really wanted to understand, if you would give us a little history about, I read the premise of the book, But just tell me what was it that made you want to write this story? Is this something you directly connect to?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, both of my parents struggled with alcoholism and addiction, and drug addiction.
Okay.
And so, like I said, I wrote it as a poem first. And I think when I wrote it as a poem, I don't know where I was in life or what I was doing, but it was just something that resonated with me. And then again, once we got into the pandemic and we realized how everyone's stuck inside, right? We all had to stay in the house. And from experience, whether you live with it or not, there are children who their only escape from abuse, their only way to get a meal, their only opportunity to engage with people is when they leave the house to go to school or when they go to some kind of activity. And so for me, I know my experience with my dad growing up would be that he borrowed my game station and it never came back, my video game system, and it never came back. Right. Or, it's like things are missing around the house. Luckily enough, I had my grandparents, so I didn't miss any meals. But right. There are children who parents are addicted, and feeding them, clothing them, bathing them, taking care of them is the last thing on their mind. And so I wanted to change this into a book because I feel like we are missing the youngest victims of drug abuse and drug addiction and alcoholism. Every opportunity, most of the literature, most of the programs, anything that deals with drug addiction is dealing with the addict. It's like we're trying to get the addict into recovery. We're giving them opportunities to change their life around once they're clean. We're doing all of these things, but we aren't talking to the children. We aren't explaining to the children that, yes, this is a life that you were born into, but this does not mean that this is normal, right? Because they don't know abnormal. This is their life. All they see is addicted parents. And, why would I think that anybody else's house is different from my house? Because this is what I live with. And so I wrote the book to really highlight. And then again, like I said, I'm from Baltimore, right? So for us, seeing a junkie on a corner was normal. And we laughed at it because that's what we saw. That's what we knew. Not even looking at it, like they have active disease. They're in addiction, like these people are using one drug, methadone, to combat another drug that's really not helping, excuse me. We've had so many children. When I was coming up in Baltimore, it was nothing to hear of a child that found their parents' methadone and overdosed and died, because that's just not the focus. The focus is the addict. The focus isn't the child.
Wow. And it's just you're so right, Adrienne, in regards to what's considered the norm for certain children. Having worked with children myself in a very urbanized, I'll use that word, part of Chicago, you know what I'm saying? And for kids, they'll tell you stories out there walking past needles and, gunshots. And of course, our city is just like Baltimore. I think when I think of Baltimore, I think of The Wire. It's like, okay, automatic Chirac, right? We have issues and reputations in our cities, but like you said, at the end of the day, it has been normalized. And you made me think of my friend Jamal Cole. He has an organization called My Block, My Hood, My City. And his tagline is exposure is key. It's all about, so he created a program for you to have them get off the block. Because there are some people in certain cities, and I'm sure even in Baltimore and Atlanta and wherever, culturally, we have remained so stigmatized. Like we are literally on our block. We never leave our neighborhood. How many children have not seen downtown Chicago or the beautiful Baltimore Harbor because they're just stuck in their block? Or in their hood, but when they're city, a city like Baltimore, a city like Chicago, a city like LA, it is so much to offer. I mean, every time I'm in my own city, people are like, "Are you a tourist?" I'm like, "No, I was born and raised here." But I just love, I'm just like I'm just a tourist person. Like I'm always gonna be that person, whatever city I go to. But even my own city, because there's so many amazing things and opportunities here, and I'm just grateful. Back to exposure. And clearly, you have had such a positive impact and have built your business and have your family now. And what was it that brought you to this point where you were exposed enough? What would you say was the key factor that got you to this point where you were able to say, you know what, I see beyond what I see? What was that point in what time in your life? What made that happen for you?
It's so interesting that there was actually a pivot that I still remember that I don't know. It was just that moment that, so I graduated from Morgan State University, but I graduated way later than what I was supposed to graduate, right? So when I first started at Morgan, I think I started at Morgan in 99.
Okay.
I think. And so I had been there for a little while. And during this time, I was still, like late 20s and rebelling. I was just in my own space. Like I said, with my parents being addicted, it was, right. I had a very tumultuous relationship with my dad because, and I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. For any of you who have addicts in prominent positions in your family, you'll notice that regardless of where they are in their addiction, they still want to be respected, right? Like they don't understand the level of disrespect that they put on other people enough to understand that we no longer respect them. So that's the issue that I had with my father, because to me, my grandmother was my mother, right? And so I listened to her, but my dad would still come around and try to tell me what to do. So I was very resentful of him for that. And so our downfall happened with high school because, he wanted me to go to this particular high school that I had no interest in going in at all. And so when he did that, that was just like this shift for me, right? I was like, regardless of how smart I am, regardless of how many accolades I have for school and everything else, that was just like, forget school, forget you, forget all of it. And so that was just the way that I felt like I needed to react, right? And so, now I'm urban, to your point, I'm urban, I'm hanging out in the hood, like I'm dating bad boys, like that's my whole thing. And so when I got to Morgan, I was sitting in a history class. I'll never forget it. It was so funny to me, and it's still funny to me now. I was sitting in a history class, and I was listening to the people speak around me, and everybody was enunciating and, like they're pronouncing their words and they sound so intelligent. And I'm over here like, nah, because you ain't gonna do, But I was just like, okay, I need to do better. Like I need to, this is the moment. This is the moment that I'm like, okay, I need to enunciate now. Like I need to understand that life is different. There's more to this life than what I'm giving it right now. And it was all because of a history class. And it went from me being the probably urban dysfunctional person that did not participate to when I went back to Morgan. Everybody's like, hey, Miss, I'm in a class now with the kids, like, hey, Miss Adrienne, my mama Adrienne is that. And I'm like, y'all, come on.
Well, you made me think of, we all been there, Adrienne, believe me. I'll never forget, I call it my Doreen Dukes moment. That was the vice president, because I thought I was going to be smart. I didn't want to work weekends, so I didn't want a part-time job in high school at McDonald's and Walgreens no more, because they're going to work me 7 days a week. So I wanted to go into the banking world. Now, I'll never forget the conversation. And it's in my book, You Are Your Friend. The very first, I think the first page, the first chapter, I talked about how I picked up the telephone and it was just so not professional. like whatever I said, plaza, whatever. And she reprimanded me on the spot. She's like, excuse me, this is the bank of blah, blah, blah. You should be saying, hello, my name is Felicia Shakespeare. And that was it, but I was hurt at first, so see how we do, that was the best. Look at this, to this very day, that sticks with me. Mm-hmm. Her name was Doreen Dukes. I believe she was of Polish descent, but a very stern, strong woman. She didn't do it because she didn't like me. She did it because it was the right way. It was the way to be a professional. Right. That stuck with me as a young person. And of course, we climb, we grow. And that's what you did. You grew and God blessed you and you have blossomed. And what an amazing testament to what can happen. Like you say, just from these moments of epiphany, we could just wake up and not always look at it from one perspective. Of course, at the time, because of my youth, I didn't see it.
Right.
But as time went on and more experiences happened, what do we do? Through time and through life and experiences, we learn and we go. Was there anything else you want to share on that story?
No, I think it's just important, and I want more people to start. Like if you have people in your space, right? Anywhere, if you work in school systems, if you work in, because I worked at the Department of Juvenile Services before I left Baltimore. So, like if you are around these children and can help them in any capacity, because a lot of them act out and then we see it because you have 13-year-olds that are being arrested and charged with murder and it's deliberate, like it's not an accident. Like it's these children are actually going out and killing people. They are. I feel like if we had more conversations with children to explain to them early the effects of drugs, of violence, of guns, of gangs, all of that, I think that we could really help these next generations that are coming up.
And anything we can do, I totally agree with you, Adrienne. It's so many facets of need now in the family, in the family unit, from an educational perspective, from a social emotional perspective, and like you said, kids they're just so open and like you said, just hearing a story. So I know, and I hope you take this to the public school system. Get your vendor license and go the next step for your brand, and actually get this book disseminated, because it is a need, especially in districts or especially large cities like Chicago, Baltimore, LA. I think this story, because they're taking in every other story. So why don't you have them take in a story that's going to bring hope? And once again, not just a 1 or 2, but a 3-time author. Your authorship over there. You got to stop hiding that.
I know, right?
So with that said, I think there's an event coming up. What's on the horizon for Adrienne and her business? What do you got coming up?
Oh man, so many things I'm working on, but I'm taking this back to Baltimore. So I'm doing a book signing next Saturday in Baltimore, a book signing and discussion, because that's where it all started for me. Beautiful. Obviously. So I wanted to go back up there and try to get some people to come out and speak with me and sit with me to have this discussion, to see, what we can do to help our children, because, we're losing them. And so we really need to be able to create programs that are for children of addiction versus just addicts.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, I'm so proud of you. Once again, you are watching A Living Brand with your host, Felicia Shakespeare. My guest tonight is Adrienne Alexander-Allen. Once again, the founder and owner of the IPY agency. I Promote You agency, which is a PR agency in the city of Atlanta. And like I said, she has some amazing clients. She's done some big things. She's really being humble on here tonight. We're gonna close with this. Adrienne, who has been some of the top two or three tier clients that you service in your agency that you would like to share, or just your favorites? However you want to do it.
I love all of y'all. I love all of y'all.
Let's just share, because I saw.
Yeah, so I have, like I said, I have clients that range. So I think one of my most engaging clients, like the client that is just that client that you all need, like for everybody that's watching this, go check out Keith L. Brown. Okay. Keith is an amazing empowerment coach and education speaker. He is a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award winner. And Keith is one of those people who you could be having the absolute worst day that you feel like you've ever had, and you have a 3-minute conversation with Keith, and it will change your entire life. So he is Keith L. Brown _. Then I also work with celebrity health and wellness coach DeBlair Tate. DeBlair is also active duty military, which makes her a little more special in her story. We are now working on her story in a different light, because she is from a small town in Mississippi. Okay. And even as a young adult, like going into her early 20s, she didn't recognize what racism was, because again, like when we say exposure or what's normal to you, having separate proms for her was still normal. They still had separate proms up until a few years ago, not several, up until like I think the first non-segregated prom that they had was in, I want to say 2017 or 2018. Up until then, they were still having 2 proms.
Wow.
And so
that's deep.
It is. Like they were still having a white prom. They had a white homecoming queen and a black one. So like we're talking about that. Dr. Aldewan Tart is a psychologist, and who else? So right.
And who in the past? I know a couple people I saw that we may recognize.
Yes, so I worked with some of the people from The Wire. I worked with Tanya Blunt from Sister Act 2. Right. I worked with Tracy Steele, who was on Love and Hip Hop.
Right.
I worked with Boss Man, who was a local Baltimore artist. Who else?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I just didn't want you to leave this show without giving yourself some kudos, because you have been in the game a minute and you are representing a lot of people so well. And even I hired you when I did my conference as a point of reference. And we have her website up. You can go to www.ipyagency.com. You can see her business and follow her also on all her events and activities and everything she's doing. That's great. So once again, Adrienne, I'm so happy. This was the night, right?
Yes.
I'm so happy to see you. I am so happy that we are still here, because like you said, you and I, we were online at the beginning of the.
We were going to make this work.
And I just think, once again, I've seen your pivot, and once again, I'm so proud of you as far as your books and just the things that you went on to do, and it's just a blessing to know you, and I just continue to wish you the best. And she's also, you forgot this part, I think I did a little research. I think aren't you hosting a podcast for the PR or show?
Oh yes, so I did when I took over as comms lead for Beepers. The acronym is Beepers. So Black Public Relations Society of Atlanta is a long name. So
Black Public Relations Society of Atlanta. Yeah, that's
yes. So we are Beepers Atlanta.
Okay.
And so I implemented a program. It's a quick 30-minute lunch break called Bites with Beepers, where we speak with people who are PR adjacent, right? So obviously the writers, the journalists, the people who publicists need to connect with in our daily lives. And then we also have some writers, producers, directors, just a really quick 30-minute chat to add another benefit to our members of Beepers.
Wonderful. So Adrienne, thank you so much for being here. We're going to remain in touch, of course. And
thank you again so much for having me. It was great. I'm so glad we got it done.
I promise y'all just don't know. It was like, okay. So if you tuned in tonight, once again, you are watching A Living Brand, hosted by yours truly, Felicia Shakespeare. Also, please follow everything A Living Brand. There's some amazing things in the works. The athleisure wear, the upcoming course, and all of the amazing things on the horizon. The podcast is going to be coming back out as well under this brand. So I'm just excited about all the newness for this and this show. Once again, you are watching She Is Still Dope, the only network for purpose-driven women, right? The first one created for, not the only one, but the first one created for purpose-driven women. So once again, please support the She Is Still Dope movement. There are so many dope women on this network doing so many different things to enlighten, inform, and educate you. So thank you again, Adrienne. Thank you again for being here. Join me every Wednesday at 7 p.m. CST, 8 p.m. EST, right here on She Is Still Dope TV. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.
Y'all have a good one.
Okay, have a good one.
Thanks.